On Christmas Eve, CEO Victoria Hale walked into the Winter Crown with her deaf daughter, Luna, holding her hand like an obligation she couldn't afford to drop. Crystal chandeliers glittered, investors laughed loudly. Deals hovered in the air like loaded weapons. Luna heard none of it. She watched mouths move, felt vibrations through the table, and slowly disappeared from her mother's world. Then, in a quiet hallway behind the kitchen, a single dad in a worn maintenance jacket knelt down and spoke to her without using his voice. Luna smiled, and everything Victoria thought she controlled began to fall apart. The Winter Crown had no business being this beautiful on Christmas Eve. 12-foot ceilings wrapped in garland, white roses the size of fists, snow falling outside the floor-to-ceiling windows like a staged performance. The air smelled of roasted chestnuts and money. Victoria Hale adjusted her daughter's velvet dress before they stepped through the revolving door. Luna didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago that her mother's touch came with instructions, not comfort. "Stay close," Victoria signed, slowly, the way someone might speak to a tourist. Luna nodded. She clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter. The lobby opened into the grand dining hall. 200 guests, maybe more. Investors from 3 countries. Board members who smiled with their mouths but calculated with their eyes. The annual Christmas gala wasn't about celebration. It was about survival, dressed in evening wear. Victoria felt Luna's hand go rigid in hers. The sound hit first. Not for Luna, but for everyone else. Laughter that bounced off marble floors. Champagne glasses chiming like tiny bells. A string quartet playing something Vivaldi in the corner. Too loud, too bright, competing with conversations that never paused for breath. Luna's hearing aids picked up every decibel, turned it into a wall of noise that had no shape, no meaning. Just pressure. Victoria didn't notice. She was already scanning the room for Malcolm Reed, the board chair who'd been circling her position for 6 months. She spotted him near the ice sculpture, holding court with the sole investors. Victoria. Her PR director, Angela Chen, appeared at her elbow. Richard Coleman just arrived. He's asking about the Q1 projections. Tell him I'll be there in 3 minutes. And Luna? Victoria looked down. Her daughter's face had gone blank. That specific kind of blank that meant she was shutting down, piece by piece, to survive the overstimulation. "I'll take her to the quiet room in 15 minutes, Victoria said. Angela's expression didn't change. The photographers want family shots first. Of course they did. The CEO with her daughter. Powerful woman, devoted mother. The narrative wrote itself. Luna felt the conversation happening above her head. She didn't need to hear the words. She knew the shape of these exchanges. Her mother's posture straightened. Her smile became a weapon, and Luna became a prop. Someone knelt down in front of her. A woman with kind eyes and too much perfume. Her mouth moved in exaggerated shapes. "Hello. Sweetie. Merry Christmas." Luna stared. The woman thought volume and slow speech would somehow reach through the silence. She didn't understand that the problem wasn't volume. It was language itself. Luna signed. "I can't understand you." The woman looked up at Victoria, confused. Victoria stepped in. "She's deaf. She uses sign language." "Oh." The woman stood quickly, as if deafness might be contagious through proximity. "I didn't know. I'm sorry." She wasn't sorry. She was uncomfortable. Luna had become a problem that required apologies. Victoria guided Luna toward their assigned table. Table 1, naturally, center of the room, maximum visibility. Luna's chair had been positioned between her mother and an empty seat reserved for the CFO who was running late. The tablecloth was cream silk. The centerpiece was white orchids in crystal. Everything looked expensive and untouchable. Luna sat down and placed her rabbit on her lap, below the table where no one could see. Victoria leaned close. "Just 1 hour," she signed. "Then we can leave." Luna nodded. She'd heard this before. 1 hour always became 3. Across the table, an investor was telling a story that required large hand gestures. His watch caught the light with each movement. People laughed at intervals Luna couldn't predict. She tried to read lips, but everyone spoke too fast, overlapping, turning away. She pulled out her phone. Victoria's hand covered it immediately. Not at the table. Her mother signed. Luna put the phone away. She sat with her hands folded. A good daughter. A quiet daughter. The kind of daughter who didn't disrupt business. The first course arrived. Butternut squash soup with creme fraiche. Luna watched the server's lips move, but caught nothing. She picked up the wrong spoon first. Her mother's hand guided her to the correct one without looking. Muscle memory from a dozen corrected mistakes. Luna ate 3 spoonfuls. The soup was too hot. She couldn't gauge temperature the way hearing children couldn't hear the warning sounds of steam or bubbling. She burned her tongue and said nothing. Victoria was deep in conversation with Malcolm Reed now, their heads tilted close over the table. Luna watched her mother's hands move through the air, gesturing at projected numbers that didn't exist yet. The string quartet transitioned into something louder. Luna's hearing aids squealed with feedback. She adjusted the volume, but it didn't help. The frequency was wrong. Everything was wrong. She needed space. Air. Somewhere the sound couldn't chase her, but her mother's hand was on her shoulder now, holding her in place for a photograph. Victoria's smile appeared, perfect and practiced. Luna tried to smile too. The camera flashed twice. When the photographer left, Victoria returned to her conversation without pause. Luna looked at the exit signs. They glowed green in the dim room. Emergency exits. She'd learned to spot them early, in case she ever needed to run from fires she couldn't hear coming. Tonight, she needed one for a different reason. She waited until her mother was fully absorbed in debate with Malcolm. Then she slipped from her chair, rabbit tucked under her arm, and walked toward the hallway that led to the restrooms. No one stopped her. No one noticed. In the world of powerful adults, an 8-year-old girl was just furniture until she became inconvenient. The hallway behind the main dining room was a different country. Dim lights instead of chandeliers, concrete floors instead of marble, the kind of space that existed purely for function. Staff entrances, storage closets, the loading dock where morning deliveries arrived before guests ever saw them. Luna walked until the vibrations from the dining room faded beneath her feet. She found a corner near the emergency exit stairwell and sat down. The floor was cold through her velvet dress, but cold was better than noise. She pressed her rabbit to her chest and closed her eyes. No one expected anything from her here. No one needed her to smile or sit still or pretend she belonged. For the first time all evening, she could breathe. Footsteps approached. Not the sharp click of dress shoes, but the soft thud of work boots. Luna opened her eyes. A man in a maintenance uniform was walking toward her, carrying a toolbox. He was tall, maybe 35, with tired eyes and a name tag that read Ethan. He saw her and stopped. Luna tensed. Adults always had questions. Why was she alone? Where were her parents? Was she lost? But Ethan didn't speak. He studied her for a moment, then slowly set down his toolbox. He pointed to himself, then made a simple sign. Hello. Luna's eyes widened. He knew. Ethan crouched down to her level, not hovering, not crowding. He pointed to the rabbit, raised his eyebrows in question. Luna held up the toy. Ethan nodded approvingly. Then he signed clearly, one word at a time. Loud. In. There? Luna nodded hard. No, Ethan signed back. Too much. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pad of paper and a pencil. He wrote, Want to see something cool? Luna nodded. Ethan stood and gestured for her to follow. They walked down the hallway to a door marked electrical. He opened it carefully, checked inside, then waved her in. The room was small and warm, filled with panels and switches that glowed softly in the dark. Ethan pointed to a large panel on the wall, covered in buttons and dials. He wrote on the pad, "This controls all the lights in the restaurant." Luna's eyes went wide. Ethan grinned. He pointed to one switch, made a questioning gesture. He flipped it. Half the hallway lights dimmed. Luna's hand flew to her mouth, eyes shining. Ethan flipped it back up. The lights returned. He signed, "Magic?" Luna shook her head, smiling. She pointed to the panel, then to her eyes, asking. Ethan understood. He started explaining, using signs and gestures and quick sketches on the pad. He showed her which switches controlled which rooms, how the system worked, why some lights were on timers. Luna absorbed every detail. This was language she could understand. Cause and effect. Systems with rules. A voice called from the hallway. "Dad?" A boy around Luna's age appeared in the doorway. He had the same tired eyes as Ethan, the same gentle way of moving. He saw Luna and immediately switched to signing. "Whose?" "This?" Ethan signed back. "New. Friend. Luna." The boy's name was Noah. He worked his way into the electrical room and sat down next to Luna like they'd known each other for years. "Boring." "Party?" Noah signed. Luna nodded emphatically. "My dad works every Christmas," Noah signed. "I come to better than home." "Why?" Luna asked. Noah's face went briefly sad. "Just us now. Mom gone." "Sorry," Luna signed. Noah shrugged. "You stuck at party to my mom." "CEO," Luna signed. "I'm supposed to sit still." Noah made a face. "That's terrible." For the first time in hours, Luna laughed. A real laugh, the kind that came from her belly and made her shoulders shake. Ethan watched from the corner, tools in hand, pretending to work on a panel that didn't need fixing. He'd learned early that kids needed space to be kids, even when adults were watching. Noah pulled out a small stack of cards from his pocket. "Want to play go fish?" Luna nodded. They sat cross-legged on the floor of the electrical room, dealing cards while Ethan's work lamp cast long shadows on the walls. This was the moment Victoria found them. Victoria had been mid-sentence with the sole investors when she realized Luna was gone. Not in her chair. Not at the dessert table. Not in the lobby where Angela had checked twice. Panic came in stages. First, irritation, then concern. She'd been so focused on Malcolm's questions about the merger, so careful to project confidence to Richard Coleman, so determined to prove she could manage both the company and motherhood without either suffering. And she'd lost her daughter in her own event. Angela found the maintenance supervisor, who radioed Ethan. Within 90 seconds, Victoria was striding down the back hallway in heels that weren't made for concrete floors. She rounded the corner and stopped. The electrical room door was open. Warm light spilled out. And inside, Luna was laughing. Actually laughing. Head thrown back, eyes bright, hands moving in rapid signs that Victoria couldn't follow. Ethan was crouched near the wall, adjusting something on a panel. A boy sat across from Luna, also signing, also laughing. They were playing cards. Victoria stood in the doorway, invisible. She watched her daughter communicate with more expression, more joy, more ease than she'd seen in months. And Victoria couldn't understand a single word. Ethan noticed her first. He stood, his expression neutral but assessing. "Mrs. Hale," he said quietly, "Luna's safe." "I can see what you were doing," Victoria interrupted. Her voice came out colder than she intended. Luna looked up. The light in her eyes dimmed immediately. She stood, brushing off her dress, reaching for her rabbit. Victoria switched to signing, slow and uncertain. You left without telling me. You were busy, Luna signed back. That's not the point. Noah was watching the exchange with wide eyes. Ethan put a hand on his son's shoulder. Victoria looked at Ethan properly for the first time. Work boots, faded jacket, calloused hands. The kind of man who fixed things people with power took for granted. Thank you for watching her, Victoria said, and hated how stiff she sounded. We should get back. Luna's hands moved before Victoria could stop her. Can Noah come? No, Victoria signed. It's a business dinner. Then I want to stay here. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan cleared his throat. Ma'am, if it helps, Noah and I are here until midnight. Luna's welcome to stay in the break room with us. It's quiet, safe. Victoria's first instinct was to refuse. Her daughter wasn't a problem to be outsourced to the maintenance staff, but Luna's face held an expression Victoria rarely saw. Hope, please, Luna signed. Victoria felt the weight of the choice. Return to the dining room with her daughter in tow, visibly unhappy, a distraction from the careful narrative she'd built, or leave her daughter with strangers who, for reasons Victoria didn't understand, had managed to make her smile. 1 hour, Victoria said finally. Then we're leaving together. Luna nodded quickly. Victoria turned to Ethan. Thank you, she said again, meaning it this time. As she walked back down the hallway, she heard laughter behind her. Light, easy, in a language she'd never bothered to learn. She'd been CEO for 8 years. She'd negotiated with hostile boards, managed 3 acquisitions, turned a failing division profitable. But she couldn't talk to her own daughter. The realization settled in her chest like a stone. Victoria returned to the dining room with her professional mask firmly in place. Malcolm Reed was waiting at the table, champagne in hand. Everything all right? Fine, Victoria said. Luna needed a break from the noise. Understandable. His tone was pleasant. His eyes were calculating. Where is she now? With the maintenance staff. Supervised. Safe. Malcolm's eyebrows rose slightly. Interesting choice. Before Victoria could respond, her COO, Simon Cross, appeared at her elbow. Victoria. A word? They stepped away from the table, into the relative privacy near the coat check. What were you thinking? Simon's voice was low but sharp. Your daughter is in a back room with maintenance? She's fine, Simon. Do you know how that looks? Malcolm's already asking questions. If this gets to the press, it won't. You don't know that. Simon ran a hand through his hair. We're 3 weeks from closing the biggest deal of your career. Coleman is watching everything, and you just handed ammunition to anyone who wants to question your judgment. Victoria felt the familiar tightness in her chest. The cost of being a woman in her position. Every decision scrutinized. Every choice with her daughter used as evidence of distraction. I made a parenting decision, Victoria said quietly. Not a business one. In your world, they're the same thing. The truth of that statement hurt more than Victoria wanted to admit. Angela appeared, tablet in hand. Victoria, the photographer, wants 1 more round of shots, and Coleman is asking about the community investment numbers. Victoria glanced toward the hallway where Luna had disappeared. Her daughter was safe, happy even, with people who spoke her language better than her own mother did. She turned back to the dining room. Let's give Coleman what he needs. At 9:47 p.m., the lights in the main dining room flickered. Conversations paused. Someone laughed nervously. The chandelier dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. Then the sound system let out a feedback screech that made everyone wince, and the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds, bathing the room in harsh white. The string quartet had stopped playing. Guests were standing, pulling out phone flashlights, murmuring in 3 languages. Malcolm Reed's voice cut through the noise. "What the hell is going on?" Victoria was already moving toward the hallway. Not because of the power failure, because she knew exactly where Luna was, and electrical rooms were the last place you wanted to be during a system malfunction. She found Ethan in the main hallway, already running toward the electrical panel with his toolbox. Noah and Luna were behind him, both looking scared. "Stay here." Ethan signed to the kids. Then he was through the door, flashlight in hand. Victoria reached Luna in seconds. "Are you okay?" Luna nodded, but her hands were shaking. The sudden darkness, the emergency lights, the vibration of people moving in panic, it was too much input from too many directions. Noah put a hand on Luna's shoulder, a quiet gesture of solidarity. Ethan emerged from the electrical room, face grim. "This wasn't an accident." "What do you mean?" Victoria demanded. "Someone tampered with the main panel, crossed connections deliberately." This was sabotage. Before Victoria could process that, Simon appeared with 2 security guards. His face was flushed with anger. "Brooks," he addressed Ethan sharply. "What did you do?" Ethan blinked. "I didn't do anything. I'm trying to fix. The system was fine until you started working on it. Now we have 200 guests in the dark and a CEO whose judgment is being questioned because her daughter was left alone with maintenance staff." "Dad didn't break anything," Noah shouted, signing simultaneously. Simon ignored him. He nodded to the security guards. "Check his toolbox. Make sure nothing was taken." "This is ridiculous," Victoria started. But Simon cut her off. "This is liability. This is our reputation. This is your daughter in an unsupervised area during a security incident." Ethan set down his toolbox without protest. His face had gone carefully blank. Noah moved closer to his father, frightened. Luna watched the guards rifle through tools and wire. She saw her new friend scared. She saw his father being treated like a criminal. She stepped forward and started signing rapidly. No one understood her. She signed faster, more emphatic, frustration building with each gesture that fell into the void. Victoria knelt down. Slow. Luna's hands stopped. She looked at her mother with something that might have been betrayal. Then she did something she'd never done at a public event. She screamed, not with sound. Luna's screams were silent to everyone except her, but her body language conveyed everything. The rage, the helplessness, the exhaustion of existing in a world that refused to speak her language. Everyone in the hallway froze. Luna pointed at Ethan, then at her eyes, then at the electrical room. She was trying to say, "I saw, I was there. He didn't do this," but no one could understand her. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. She'd spent 8 years building empires and managing crises and proving she could do everything, and she couldn't help her daughter say 5 words. She stood slowly, turned to Simon. "Stop this. Now. Victoria, be reasonable." I said stop. Her voice carried the weight of every boardroom she'd ever dominated. Simon actually stepped back. Victoria pulled out her phone and opened a translation app. Clumsy, imperfect. But it was something. She typed, "Luna, can you show me what happened?" Luna read the screen. Nodded. They walked into the electrical room together. Luna pointed to specific panels, specific wires. Victoria took photos, letting Luna guide her hands. When they emerged, Victoria showed the photos to Ethan. "Is this what you saw?" Ethan studied them. Yes, those connections were deliberately crossed. It would take someone who knew the system. Victoria turned to Simon. "Who else has access to this room?" "Maintenance staff. Venue management. Some contractors. Get me the access logs." Now, Malcolm Reed had joined them now, along with Richard Coleman and a cluster of board members. The hallway was getting crowded. Victoria, Malcolm said carefully, perhaps we should handle this internally. Someone sabotaged my event, Victoria interrupted. During Christmas, with children present. We're not handling this internally. She pulled out her phone again and called building security. This is Victoria Hale. I need access to your camera system for the past 2 hours. Main hallway and electrical rooms. Coleman was watching her with an unreadable expression. The security footage arrived on a tablet within minutes. Victoria, Ethan, and the head of building security reviewed it together. At 9:23 p.m., a man in a contractor uniform had entered the electrical room. He'd been inside for 6 minutes, long enough to cross the connections. Create the malfunction. Freeze that frame, Victoria said. The image sharpened. The contractor's face was partially visible. Ethan leaned in. That's Mark Chen. He used to work here. Got fired 3 months ago for theft. Why would he come back? Simon asked. Victoria looked at Malcolm. Because someone paid him to. The silence that followed was dangerous. That's quite an accusation, Malcolm said quietly. It's a hypothesis, Victoria corrected. One I plan to investigate fully. She turned to the security guards. Mr. Brooks and his son are free to go. With my apologies. Noah immediately grabbed his father's hand. Luna moved to Noah's other side, a small gesture of alliance. Ethan met Victoria's eyes. Thank you. Victoria nodded. Then she addressed the room full of executives and investors. We will restore power within the hour. In the meantime, the event continues in the lobby. She was already moving, making calls, coordinating with the venue manager. CEO mode fully activated, but before she returned to the dining room, she stopped, turned back to where Luna stood with Ethan and Noah, and signed, slowly but clearly, I am learning. Will you? Luna's face transformed. She signed back. Yes, it was the first real conversation they'd had in months. Christmas morning arrived quiet and cold. Victoria sat in her home office with police reports, security footage, and a resignation letter from Malcolm Reed. The investigation had moved quickly once they started looking. Chen's bank account showed a deposit from a shell company Malcolm controlled. The sabotage had been designed to create chaos at exactly the moment investors were evaluating Victoria's leadership. Malcolm had gambled that a crisis, combined with questions about Victoria's judgment regarding Luna, would be enough to push the board toward removing her. He'd lost. Richard Coleman had been the deciding factor. He'd watched Victoria handle the crisis with cold precision, while simultaneously protecting her daughter and an innocent employee. That's the kind of leader we need, he'd told the board at their emergency session. Someone who can manage multiple crises without losing their moral compass. The merger was approved. Malcolm was gone. Victoria's position was secure, but she felt no victory. Luna appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas, holding her rabbit. Merry Christmas, Victoria signed. Luna came closer, studying her mother's face. You sad? Victoria put down her phone. No. Thinking. About what? How to explain that she'd won everything professionally and realized she'd been losing what mattered most. Victoria gestured to the chair beside her. Luna climbed up, tucking her feet under her. I was wrong, Victoria signed carefully. I thought I could manage everything, but I didn't manage you. I managed around you. Luna was quiet for a moment. Then she signed. You were scared? The observation was devastatingly accurate. Yes, Victoria admitted. Scared. I would fail at work if I spent time with you. Scared. I would fail. You if I spent time at work, so you failed. Both? Luna signed. Victoria felt the truth of that land. Yes. Luna reached out and took her mother's hand, not pulling, just holding. Can you? I am learning, Victoria signed. Will take time. Okay. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, snow was starting to fall again. Luna's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, smiled at the screen. Noah. Says. Merry Christmas, she signed. Can I invite him over? Victoria's first instinct was to check her calendar, calculate the optics, consider the complications. Then she remembered the electrical room, the laughter, her daughter's face when someone finally spoke her language. Yes, she signed. Invite Ethan. Too. Luna's smile was worth every cancelled meeting Victoria had ever scheduled. 3 weeks later, on a regular Tuesday night, 4 people sat around Victoria's dining table. No crystal, no champagne. Just pasta and salad and garlic bread that Ethan had insisted on making from scratch. Luna and Noah were teaching Victoria and Ethan a card game that required elaborate hand signals and apparently no rules anyone could explain clearly. Wait, if I have 3 sevens, do I? Victoria's hands fumbled through the signs. No, Luna signed, laughing. 3, same, color, not, number. Since when? Ethan signed. Since. Always. Noah insisted. They were all terrible at it. They were all having a perfect time. Between rounds, while the kids dealt new hands, Victoria and Ethan talked. The company wants to hire you, Victoria said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That's a real job? It is now. After Christmas Eve, the board realized how many gaps we have. Not just for employees, but for clients, families. Kids like Luna who deserve to access spaces that actually consider them. I don't have a degree in. You have something better. You have lived experience. You raised a deaf son. You see what we miss. Ethan considered this. I'd want Noah involved. Part-time. After school. He's the one who notices things I don't anymore. Done. They shook hands across the table. Luna was watching them, following the conversation in pieces. She signed to her mother. Ethan. Working. With. You. Now? Yes. Victoria confirmed. Good. He's smart. Noah grinned and dealt the next hand. Later, after Ethan and Noah had gone home, Luna helped Victoria clear the table. It was quiet work. Comfortable. The kind of silence that didn't need filling. As Luna rinsed plates, Victoria studied her daughter's profile. 8 years old, growing up in a world that would never quite fit her, but learning to build her own spaces anyway. Luna, Victoria signed, waiting until her daughter looked up. Luna's hands stilled in the soapy water. She'd heard those words before, signed dutifully at bedtime, part of the routine, but tonight they landed differently. I love you, too, Luna signed back. Then she asked, Will you keep learning every day? Victoria promised. Luna smiled. Good, because you're still very slow. Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. I know. They finished the dishes together, hands moving through the water, finding a rhythm that didn't require words. Outside, the city lights glowed through the window. The world kept spinning, full of deadlines and board meetings and crises that would demand Victoria's attention tomorrow. But tonight, she was exactly where she needed to be, in the quiet kitchen, learning a language that mattered more than any deal she'd ever closed. with a daughter who was teaching her that real power wasn't about control, it was about connection, and sometimes the most important conversations happened in complete silence.